Hi, I'm Kay Winwood, and I'm president of the Santa Fe Texas Education Foundation. On May 18th, we had so many people from Santa Fe and surrounding communities that were beginning to ask how they could help the people of Santa Fe High School. Texas First Bank reached out to us and the foundation and asked if our organization would be willing to manage or be able to manage the donations. And the foundation said yes, because we thought we could. As time went by and the Santa Fe Strong Fund grew, we realized that our foundation didn't have the expertise and the knowledge to deal with the legalities of the disbursement of the funds. And so we have partnered with the National Compassion Fund, who at no charge to the communities around the country has helped places like Parkland, Florida, Las Vegas, Aurora, Colorado, and many others deal with the situation like we are dealing with. It's sad that an organization like the National Compassion Fund has to exist, but we have realized that we're very thankful that they do, because they have the expertise and the knowledge to do what we are unable to do. I'd like to introduce you to Mark Linehan. He is the chairman of the National Compassion Fund.
Good evening, everybody. National Compassion Fund, we are the ones that folks sometimes invite in after this kind of tragedy.
Your mic a little closer.
Yeah. There you go.
All when there's a hurricane, and when this kind of tragedy, mass murders, things like that, people call us. And so Jeff and his team, the National Compassion Fund, have been to Parkland, Florida, the Marjorie Stoneman families. They've been to Pulse Nightclub, Vegas, all the ones you heard about. And it's a total 501c3 private organization that has one promise. 100% of the money donated that's entrusted through us gets to the families. 100%. That's why we were created. We were created by folks who had been in your shoes years before, who felt that money being donated in their names wasn't coming to them. There is different money out there that you guys are legally entitled to get. Restitution to the criminal court, crime victims compensation to the Attorney General's office, and you can pursue civil lawsuits. Those are all things you can get the power of law behind you. You're entitled to that money with the laws behind you on that. The Compassion Fund is just gifts that you to you from all over the world, and somebody's got to hand it over. That's our job. But we don't set the rules on that. Wherever we go, we ask the local community to come up with the rules. The rules. The local community here is the steering committee, and they have a set of penciled in rules. That's all. And today is your day to think about those rules, and write them emails, ask questions, saying, here's how I think these rules should be better for us, the this community. And that's what they're going to do. All right? If you have questions, it's your chance to ask them. But don't just worry about the questions. If you just want them to understand what's in your heart, take a minute and share that. Okay? They need to hear that story too. All right? Definitely do. And if you don't feel like you want to stand up with cameras and ask a question, you can scribble on your piece of paper and hand it to me, and I'll get it to read it for you anonymously. I'll be glad to do that. All right? Jeff Dion is the executive director of the committee. But Danielle is, the National Compassion Fund. But Danielle is in charge of the steering committee here, and she's going to talk about it.
Hi, like you said, my name is Danielle Tabaldo, and I'm chair of the steering committee. I just wanted to thank y'all for coming out. I know this is something that people don't want to be here. If we could go back to May 18th, we would change this. We have been asked to take on the task to help with the eligibility and distribution of these funds that everybody so graciously donated to the victims of this tragedy. I would like to take time to introduce the committee. We have Ms. Debbie Abney, who's a Santa Fe graduate and was also a retired occupational therapist for Santa Fe ISD. Billy Burns, who's a Santa Fe High School graduate and also Valero maintenance manager. Ms. Janita Coker, she's the parent of a Santa Fe ISD student and small business owner. We have Miss Nikki Cronk, Santa Fe High School graduate and nurse practitioner, owner of a family medicine clinic. Clint DeGroot, who is also a graduate and pastor of Dominion Church. We have Amanda Garcia, who is also our recording secretary. She's the parent of a Santa Fe ISD student and space industry engineer. Don Gartman, who's retired utility company executive and COM trustee. Erica Garza, Santa Fe ISD graduate and insurance agent owner. We have Rosita Gibbs, parent of the Santa Fe ISD students, small business manager and leader of the Haley's Buddy Benches project at Santa Fe ISD. Keith Gray, who is a Santa Fe High School graduate and Centerpoint Energy Service Area Director. Fidencia Leja, who is a graduate and local business owner and his ministry's volunteer. Phil Roberts, who is a probate lawyer and serves on numerous nonprofit boards. Chardell Villarreal, who is a graduate and community fundraiser. Gaddis Widgeon, who is a business leader in real estate. Rebecca Wright, who is a grant writer, NASA history author, and parent of graduates. I myself was a graduate of Santa Fe. My daughter graduated from Santa Fe. I have been part of the Galveston County Fair and Rodeo, which is a nonprofit organization, for the past 17 plus years. I also have legal assistant knowledge, and then I'm currently an RN. The purpose of this meeting is for y'all. This is for y'all to ask your questions, to give suggestions, to voice your opinion, concerns. The draft protocol was put out for y'all to review, to kind of get an idea of where we're at and what we're looking at as far as this process goes. Again, this is for y'all, so we are here. You will be asked later, to anybody that wants to come up to the mic, to again ask any questions you have. We'll answer all those that we can, and then give y'all a chance to give y'all's input. I would now like to introduce Jeff Keon. He will take over now. He's the executive director of the Compassion Fund, and he'll give an explanation of the protocols and the process.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a special thank you to all the members of the steering committee who are giving of their time and taking on a really tough task. But they all do it out of a love for their community and a desire to do the right thing. And I want to thank all of you for coming here and being interested enough in what's going on to listen and to share your thoughts with all of the committee. As Mark talked about, the National Compassion Fund was started when we were approached by victims of the Aurora theater shooting, and they didn't like how their fund was being administered. And they said, we want you to start a new fund for us. And I thought, well, rather than just start one for you, what if we put an infrastructure in place so that when one of these events occurs, we can flip a switch, we can start accepting contributions from the general public, and we can make sure that 100% of that money goes to the victims of that crime. And so it took us a while to set up that infrastructure, and then we did, and we just waited for the day that we didn't want to have happen, but we knew it would. And that happened on April 2nd, 2014, with the second mass shooting at Fort Hood here in Texas. And the Defense Department designated us as the official relief fund. We collected some money, we distributed it to victims, and that was our beta test, and we saw this process can work. And since then, unfortunately, we've had to do it a number of times in different places around the country, and that's what brings us here. I have been working with crime victims for nearly 25 years, and I come to this because when I was 14 years old, my sister Paulette was murdered. She was the victim of a serial killer. And so I've dedicated my career to serving victims of crime and making this process easier for people who walk this path of recovery. Now, it's not that we believe that victims of mass casualty crimes are any more in need of financial assistance or support than any of the other victims that we work with every day. But when something like this happens, people spontaneously want to send money because their hearts ache and they want to help all of you. And so they just start sending money. And so if that's going to happen, I figure we can come up with a more victim-centered and trauma-informed way to do this so that, because the folks in this community have been through enough. Now, everybody thinks that it's easy to give away money until they start doing it. And then they realize that there's all sorts of complications and things that you have to abide by. And so because we've been through this several times, we can identify what those things are and try to work through them to make this process as smooth and easy as possible for folks. As Mark said, we can help manage this and administer this and run the mechanics of it. But the rules that govern it, the decisions that come, those are decisions that have to come from the local community. And all of these folks are representatives of your local community. They're almost like the jury in a criminal case. They're going to look and they're going to just make their best decision on what the right thing to do is. And whatever decision they make here, there's no right decision or wrong decision because it's really subjective. But the most important thing is that it's their decision and it comes from this community, and it's not us, someone coming from outside, telling y'all what you should do with this money. So we put together a draft protocol. This is a starting point for the discussion. It is a suggestion. And as part of our agreement with the Santa Fe Education Foundation on our work in administering this fund, they had to promise that they would, that 100% of the money that was collected would go to the victims of this event. And they also agreed that they would cover the families of those who were killed, the people who were injured, and that we would in some appropriate way recognize the people who were present and suffered psychological trauma as a result of this event. People and kids saw and endured things that cannot be erased. And I know from working with victims over the last 25 years that those psychological injuries are every bit as real and devastating as some of the physical injuries that were suffered. Now that doesn't mean that everybody's loss was the same, and we recognize that. And so we don't want to leave people out, but we also have to sort of figure out how we're going to recognize that and how we're going to prioritize that at each level. So the draft protocols say that there are 4 categories of eligibility: the families of those who were killed, the people who were injured and hospitalized overnight, the people who were injured and received medical treatment on an outpatient basis, and in this draft protocol identifies it as the people who were present in the art room and experienced psychological trauma as a result of this. When we create these categories, generally we're going to treat people in the same situation in the same way. So all of the families of the deceased will receive the same amount of money. All of the people who were treated as outpatients will receive the same amount of money. All of the people who receive benefits for being present, they'll each get the same amount. Now, the one part that's different is people who were injured and hospitalized, because there could be a very wide range that we've got to look at. We don't want to necessarily look at people the same way if someone was grazed by a bullet versus someone who was seriously injured and hospitalized for many weeks. And so for that hospitalization category, that could be broken down into tiers with different levels of benefits based on how long people were hospitalized. Now, we can't predict what that is right now because we won't have that information until people submit their application, and then we'll look at that information, and then the committee will come up with a distribution plan that responds to and reflects what the actual experience was. Because we give away 100% of the money that was collected, how much money people in each category get is a factor of how much money was collected and how many validated people do we have that have submitted applications? Just because we say that a certain people in a certain category are eligible for benefits, that does not mean that all of those people are going to submit an application. Everybody's got their own, their own decision to make, and they could have their own reasons. And so why don't we base it on, well, we know how many people are in that class, and why don't we just divide it up? Well, if someone doesn't submit an application, and trust me, I've been in the position in other places where there were people who refused to take the money, and that created problems. So we want to know when we're distributing it, how many validated people we have that have submitted an application, and how much money do we have. So we won't, this committee won't even deal with trying to set up that distribution plan until towards the end of the process when we have the real information. Because until then, it would just be speculation. Now, just because sometimes people get hung up on these different categories and think that each category is the same, like we're going to give 25% to each category. That's not the way it works. These are just different categories. There is no set rule about what goes where, all right? And these folks are going to listen, they're going to look at the information, and then they're going to make a decision. The reason we break out the outpatient injury as a separate category from injury, because that's one that generally we can give all of those people that same amount of money. Something else to remember about outpatient injuries. Generally, they are less serious, but in a situation like this, where you have a mass shooting, there are people who are treated and released who on any other day might be kept in the hospital overnight. And so sometimes people who are actually shot are treated and released because they're trying to harbor their resources and triage folks to make sure that they have those hospital resources available for the people who are more seriously injured. And so we also do not want to minimize and just say, oh, that doesn't matter, when actually it's someone that's been shot. So those are the ways that we look at those categories. We're going to listen to all of you and hear what people have to say. People can offer feedback by sending an email. You can send an email if you have one of these little sheets of paper that we were giving out. If you want to offer public feedback, you don't want to stand up and say it here in front of everyone, but you want to know what the committee thinks, we want the committee to know what you think, send an email to santafestrong@victimsofcrime.org. And I promise you all of that, whatever you share, is going to come before this committee. If you want information about what we're deciding with the fund, or updates or reminders that the application process is open, then we ask folks to just complete the victim and survivor contact form at nationalcompassionfund.org. People think, well, you know who I am, you have my information. Actually, we don't necessarily. Law enforcement is not allowed to give us information on victims. The school is not allowed to give us information on victims. We are a private 501c3. So for us to have your information and know who you are, we want you to sign up. And then that way we can be sure that we're going to send out information to everybody who wants it. Doesn't matter if you're just a concerned community member, you're a friend of a victim. If you want information, sign up and we'll send information to everybody. Once we hear from everybody and we get feedback, then this committee will look at the protocols and they'll decide on the final protocols. And that's going to happen next week. So by Monday, if you want to give public comment and you don't do it today, you want to do it by Monday, because that's when they're going to make a decision. Next week. Once they decide on the final protocols, then those will be the rules that will govern eligibility and distribution of these funds. Once they decide the final protocols, then we're going to go ahead and make sure that the application process we have, the questions that we ask, reflect and match up with what they put in the final protocols. We have an online application. And once the rules are set, it takes our IT people about 2 or 3 weeks to set up that online application. We found that an online application works much faster. We don't have to wait for things to come in the mail. It's a lot easier for us to keep track of things, and so we can see what's going on. We call it an application. It's really just a validation process. An application doesn't mean that you're asking for something. It doesn't mean that, anybody is sitting in judgment about whether you deserve something. We just need to make sure, we need to identify and make sure that people are who they say they are and that they meet the criteria. Because we don't want, if someone says that their child was killed and we give them money and then find out that they weren't really the parent. All right? So we have an obligation to everybody who donated, to this community, and particularly to every victim of this crime, to make sure that the folks we give money to are the right people who are meant to get it. Because every dollar that we give to someone who isn't supposed to get it is money that comes from people who should be getting it. So we just need to make sure of this process. So for the online application, an application for death benefits takes maybe 10 or 12 minutes to do. It's really pretty simple. And you put in your information, and whoever is submitting that application needs to prove their relationship to the victim that was killed. If it was your child, that just means you put up their birth certificate. Has their name, has your name, we know you go together. If it was a spouse that was killed, you put up the marriage certificate, and then that shows, yes, this person's married to this person. And then you'll put up upload a copy of the death certificate. And then we have to ask some questions, which are just really routine questions, and for some folks they're going to seem ridiculous, but it's just questions that we need to ask because if someone died and they have a will, we're going to go ahead and distribute money in accordance with the will because that represents the decedent's wishes. Someone didn't have a will, and probably most people didn't, particularly kids, then the law in Texas says that if someone dies without a will, they have what's called an intestacy statute. And it says someone dies without a will, this is who gets it. And so if someone's married at the time of their death, generally it's their spouse. If someone is not married but they have kids, then it tends to be their children. And so there's all sorts of ways that works out. So that's why the application is going to ask, was this person married? Did this person have any children? Did this person, were the children the biological children of the person they were married to? Did they have any children that predeceased them? All sorts of steps, just so we can figure out who the legal heir is, all right? And then you tell us, the person who submits that application tells us, how do you want us to distribute this money within your family? If it's just mom and dad, and they're married, and it's like, okay, it's going to come to us 100%, that's fine. If, let's say, and the family can decide however you want. Like it can all go to mom and dad. If there is mom and dad and a sibling, and mom and dad decide, well, we want some of this money to go to this sibling, but be put in trust, you can do that. That's up to you. But then you just have to tell us that it's going to be 66% to mom and dad and 33% to a sibling. You get to control that. And whoever's getting money, whoever's a legal heir, they just have to sign a form. I understand that I am getting this percentage and I agree to that. We want everything to be agreed. If there is a legal heir and they're getting nothing, then they're going to go ahead and they're going to sign a consent form that says, I'm a legal heir, I'm getting 0%, and I'm fine with that. That's okay too. Legal heirs need to agree, all right? That's the fastest, easiest way to do everything. If there are legal heirs that don't agree, we're going to try and get you to agree. Work something out. If you can't work it out, then what we're going to do is we're going to deposit that money with the probate court, and then the court will go ahead and determine that according to Texas probate law, all right? So folks can agree that's going to be the easiest and it's going to be the fastest. In terms of injury benefits, if the person who was injured is an adult, that's going to be fine. Then they're going to go ahead and we're just going to give them the money and their benefit. If the person who was injured was a child, the law in Texas they have something called the Uniform Transfer to Minors Act. And it says you can't give a child more than, what is it, Mark, $25,000 or 25, if you give a child, someone under the age of 18, more than $25,000, it's got to be put into trust and protected so that someone can't take all that money from that kid. Now, when that money is in trust, and it could be that the parent is going to be the trustee, that parent can certainly use money from that trust for anything for the benefit of the child. They need to pay medical bills, if the child needs to go to summer camp, if the child needs books for school, new sneakers, whatever it is, if it's for the child's benefit, the trustee can take money out of that trust and use it. If when the child reaches the appropriate age and there's still money in that trust, then that can be released to the child when they're an adult. For injury cases, people are going to fill out that information. If it is a child that is the victim, is the beneficiary, a parent or guardian has to do that on their behalf. So once again, if you're a parent who's filling out an application for an injured child, you're going to need to upload a copy of the birth certificate so you know that you're the parent. If you're a legal guardian, whatever that document is that says you're the legal guardian of this child, upload that just so we can prove that you're the right person. You'll tell us if they, a little bit about the injury, where they were hospitalized, how many nights they were in the hospital, all right? Then you're going to, there's going to be a HIPAA authorization form. That's going to be part of the application. You're going to download it, print it out, fill it out, sign it, and you can either scan it and upload it back to the application, take a picture of it with your phone and upload the JPEG back up to the application. But that HIPAA authorization gives your medical provider, whether it's the hospital or the doctor, permission to tell us, yes, this information that they gave you is correct. All right? You don't have to send us any medical records. We're not going to put you through that. All right? If you just sign the HIPAA and tell us who the medical provider is, we'll get the information directly from the provider. The way we've worked it out in the last couple times we've done this, we've contacted the hospitals, and I was talking to some of them today, so that they are a reviewer. They go right into our system and review this stuff. They can look at the information that was put up and say, yes, that's correct, and they can hit confirm. Or they can say, we don't have any record of this patient. Or they can say, yeah, but this person said they were in the hospital 6 nights, our records only show 5 nights. Sometimes that's because hospitals are real particular about how they count it, not like normal people. And so there might be some discrepancy. But it's much faster and much easier, and we can process things quickly with the hospital's help. And that's basically all you do for the injury application. And then people who were present, again, if it was an adult, they would just fill it out for themselves, and we're going to ask the question about, were you in X spot, whatever that determination is, and if they say yes, then we've got to make sure that we have that information, and then it's going to be okay. So, whenever we are trying to set rules for some of these things, there's 3 really important questions we need to ask ourselves. The first question is it the right thing to do? The second question is it fair? And the third question is, can we practically pull it off? Can we really do this? So for instance, when we did the fund for Parkland, there were a whole bunch of people in the building, in that particular school building where the shooting took place. And kids were running around, and kids were pulled into any available classroom for safety. And there were people who said, well, you should just give psychological trauma benefits to those kids in the classrooms where there was a shooting. It's like, well, that makes sense. That seems fair. Seems like the right thing to do. But there wasn't any way to prove who was in what classroom because people were pulled into any available classroom. There wasn't a record of it. And so ultimately what they did is they said anybody who was in that building. And we had confidence we could figure out who was in the building, but not in each particular room. And so they're going to set the rules about what they think is the right thing to do. All I want to make sure is that whatever rule they set is something that we can carry out objectively. And that's not always an easy thing to do. There are, if you have, there are some people who are shot, have what we call a catastrophic injury. And their medical expenses may exceed their assets. And maybe they don't have health insurance. And maybe they're on Medicaid and public assistance because their medical bills are so big. If someone is on Medicaid and they get a whole bunch of money from this fund, it could invalidate their eligibility for Medicaid. And so we want to know that, because what we can do is we can work with a pro bono attorney to set up what we call a special needs trust. That allows that person to get the money, it goes into a trust, but it doesn't invalidate their Medicaid benefits. For instance, I know and these are things we've learned. I wasn't involved in the Boston One Fund after the marathon bombing, but there were people, I read the newspaper articles, that there were people who got checks for like $250,000 because they'd lost a leg, and that check was sitting in a kitchen drawer because they felt if they cashed that check, they were going to lose all their health insurance. And when you have prosthetics and stuff that's really expensive, and you think, well, $250,000 is a lot of money, but they're going to eat through that in like a year or two with medical expenses, and then, who's going to help them with the prosthetics they need going forward? So we just want to think about everything. We want to help. We don't want to create any other problems. So every question that we ask about folks is so that we can help tailor this response to be of the maximum benefit to you. So we'll look at everybody's application and we'll figure out everybody that's validated, everyone whose medical stuff has been validated, and then we're going to have a list of all the people, and we're going to know how many people are in each category, all right? We think the deadline for applications to submit your application is going to be the end of August. So if I have 50 people that submit their applications on the last day, it's probably going to take a little while to process all of those. But that's okay, we built that into the program, all right? So we'll validate all the applications, we'll know who the folks are that we're dealing with, and then we're going to know how much money we have, and then we're going to give all that information to the committee, and then they're going to go ahead and come up with that distribution plan, all right? We are propose holding the fund open for donations until September 30th. The reason for that is, in my experience, corporations tend to give later in the process, but corporations also tend to give the most amount of money. And if people want to give, we want to hold it open long enough so we can maximize the amount of donations that are coming to help this community. Because the sad fact is that people pay attention to you when it happens, but then the world's attention goes someplace else. And we only have one shot to do this. And so we're not going to be able to come back later and do this again. So we want to maximize, while people are paying attention, to be able to get as much money in to help folks as possible. So that's why we hold that fund open till then. After they do the distribution plan, then you're going to get an email. It's going to say, your application's been approved, this is the amount of your benefits. And within just a couple days after that, money's going to show up in your bank account. When you submit your application, we don't need to know your bank account number, your routing number. We work with a electronic payment system called Zelle. Maybe some of you have the Zelle app on your phone. It's like Venmo or Cash or things like that. And so we will tell you ahead of time, if the money is just going into your bank account, then you should sign up with Zelle. There are 21 different major banks that work with Zelle as part of their program. If your bank is one...
Why don't we have to sign up with another bank? Why can't we just use
No. You don't have to sign up with another bank, okay? There are 21 banks that Zelle is part of their program. If your bank is one of those, then you're going to sign up for that through your bank. If your bank is not on that list, then you just sign up through Zelle, all right? And the money's just going to appear in your account. To be eligible to get that transfer, it just needs to be an American, a U.S. bank account that has a positive balance that can accept deposits. And that's what qualifies, all right? So, and then if you do that, it will be really easy because we're giving out a lot of money, and that way it's secure. We don't have to worry about lost checks or things like that. There's much less of a chance for fraud because you're not giving us your bank account information or anything like that, and so we're able to use that. All we're going to need is the email address that is associated with Zelle, and it makes it really simple, all right? Once you get that money, you can do whatever you want with the money. That money is a gift, all right? This money is it's not intended to be compensation for any economic loss. It's not based on medical bills. It's not based on lost wages. We could have all the money in the world, and there would not be enough money to solve all your problems or fix everything. There's not enough money in the world to repair the injuries that were incurred or bring back the people that were killed. But people have donated money, and our job is just to make sure that the money that was donated out of the goodness of their heart goes to the right place. And so if you want to use that money to pay medical bills, you can do it. If you want to use that money to start a scholarship fund or build a memorial, that's your choice. If you want to use that money to go on vacation for 3 months, that's your choice. You are empowered to decide how you think it's going to help. And so that's totally up to you. I can't give you tax advice, but I can tell you that through the good offices of Congressman Randy Weber, he wrote to the IRS, and we got the commissioner of the IRS sent Congressman Weber this letter, which I just got today, which says that these benefits from this fund is a gift. A gift is not taxable to the recipient of the gift. When you give a gift, if a gift is large enough that it's taxable, the people who pay that tax are the givers of the gift. Here, the givers of the gift is the National Compassion Fund, and we're a 501c3, so we don't pay taxes. So there shouldn't be a tax implication for you. I can't give you tax advice, but we're going to put this letter out on the website. And if someone does your taxes, you take it to your CPA, you give them this letter and say, look, here's this opinion letter from the IRS. You hang your hat on this and do what you need to do. So that's the way this process is set up to work, all right? Everything that we do, every decision that we've made is to try to make it as easy and as simple for you as we possibly can. And now we want to hear from you. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a suggested change, or if you just want to share something that you want the committee to know and understand, you can come up here. Elena here has the microphone. You folks can just form a line so we know who's going to speak next. We ask you to please keep your comments to 3 minutes because we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard.
I'm Mercedes Stone. My brother was Christian. I guess the only question from our family is, so this meeting is solely about just placing percentage on, I guess, from my understanding that this was based on like the death the victims and then the last one? And the injured. Okay, have you already figured out this percentages yet of what this is about, correct?
Yeah, no, and there are no set percentages, and we can't even get to that until we know how much money we have and how many people are in each category. And so, because what really matters, there's not like a percentage set to each category. That's not how we did this. What we look at is, what is the amount of money that each person in that category gets? And this committee has to feel that feels right. We think that seems fair. So it's not based on percentages, because if we just gave, a certain percentage, and then there was a whole bunch of people in that category, then those people would all get less, and we don't want that to happen. So there's not a percentage set for each category.
So it's divided up equally between everyone?
No, they're going to decide how it's divided up, and they're going to set the amounts, and they're going to see about what feels right. But we don't know how many people are going to be in each category.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll know that at the end when we know how much money we have. That brings up a good point. How much money do we have?
Are $825,977.33. That's what there is so far. We expect more to come in. I've had a conversation with Carnival Cruise Lines about making a donation. We don't know how much they're giving. That hasn't come yet. We're reaching out to other corporations. We think other people are going to give. So that's a healthy amount of money, but more will come. All right, other questions or comment?
I have a comment.
Okay.
In October, by October, some
Please use the
families,
microphone.
I'm pretty sure they can hear me. And by October, some of these people might end up homeless. You know what I'm saying? What is this money going to do for us in October? My lights almost got cut off the other day. It's going on 8 weeks tomorrow. What is the money going to do for us in October? But just make us relive again? I don't understand none of this. I don't understand none of it.
We're not the only benefit that's out there. We're part of a continuum of care. There is there was.
Answer my question. How is it going to help us now when we're having problems now? We're still going to continue having problems through October.
And you're going to have problem, right? But we don't. It's not possible for us to do this and set this up, to do it in a way that is fair and documented, to be able to give out this money, for us to be in compliance with the law.
There's a lot of families struggling. That's what I'm going to let you know. And until October, we're going to continue struggling. So whatever y'all got to do, just know that. That's all I want y'all to know.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments or questions?
Hi.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And this is just clarification. Throughout here, y'all make reference to the administrators, okay? Or who
Right.
the administrators.
Hold the mic up closer.
I think it's going to be the call.
Is that on?
Some of y'all can hear me. It went out. I don't need that.
Oh, there we go.
Y'all make mention
Great.
that the administrators will be the National Compassion Fund and Hogan Lavelles LLC.
Right.
Hogan Lavelles LLC. I'm not familiar with that particular company. What service are they going to perform? What do they do?
Oh, sure. They're a big law firm in Washington, D.C., and they have volunteered pro bono to review these. So the National Compassion Fund, we probably have like 3 dedicated people on this, and then some other folks. So we couldn't possibly do all of the reviews ourselves. And so with Parkland and Las Vegas, we had a claims processing company that volunteered pro bono. So what they did is they would look at each application, and they would, as they look at an application, first question is, did someone fill out the right application? Was this an application for death benefits and they filled out the right form? Have they answered all the questions? Do we have the information they need? If it's an injury claim, did they upload the HIPAA Do we have that? Did they upload the birth certificate? And so they're just checking, making sure that we have what we need. If anybody ever, something's missing, then they're going to go ahead and they're going to let us know at the Compassion Fund, and we're the ones that are going to reach out to you and say, hey, we got this, but we still need this, and we're going to work with you to help make sure we get all of that. In Parkland and Las Vegas, another group did the processing, and then Hogan Lovells came behind and did a final review and looked at everything and made sure that every application that was approved met all of the guidelines that were set up in the protocols. In this next one, Hogan Lovells has volunteered to do the processing of those claims, and so they're going to look at that, and if something's missing, they're going to let us know. And so they're the pro bono help we need, because sad as it is, we're running 3 different funds at the same time. And so in order for us to have the capacity to be able to do that and the expertise, we look to other qualified folks to help.
That's fine, thank you. The other thing is that on the final thing, you're going to have a final audit, you say, down here after November of 18, okay? By an independent auditing firm, okay? Is that a pro bono audit also? There's nobody to tax that, or how is that?
No, generally, that's something that we have to pay for out of our administrative costs. Yeah, right. It doesn't come out of this fund. Nothing comes out of this fund. Right. And so what they do is, so it's not a full audit in that it's not at the end of the fiscal year, but they're going to look at our books and the Education Foundation's books and say, okay, according to their books, this is how much money was donated into the fund, and then they're going to look at what we distributed in the fund and say that it matches. And so that's how you'll know that there's, and they'll do an audit letter or whatever, like, based on our review of the financial documents that we've seen, this is what we see. And we're going to release that letter, so that's going to be publicly available, because when we say we're going to give away 100%, that means to the penny, the amount of money that was donated to the fund should equal the amount of money that was distributed at the end.
Correct. Thank you.
Rice, and Flo Rice is my wife. I met with you today and had a question, since y'all haven't seen the video of the incident. And where are you basing your information from? Are you working with the Sheriff's Department or the state and getting actual timeline of who was where, what victim was in what hallway, what classroom? Where are you getting this from?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And so we are working with law enforcement, and actually had a presentation by law enforcement about what was actually happening. I haven't seen the video. I don't think we're going to be able to. I don't think they'll let us see the video. And if they do, and if it's publicly released, it's not going to be in time for us to do this. But we have reached out to law enforcement for that information, to use that to base those decisions on.
Okay, so you're talking with law enforcement, county, state, federal?
The local law enforcement on the scene.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There was also a question about, what do people need help filling out the application? And so if you have any questions, there's help available. If you need help scanning or uploading documents or anything like that, the folks at First Texas Bank have volunteered, said anybody can come by. They'll help them with the application. They'll help them with their documents. The online application's been set up that you can do it on a computer, on a laptop, on your phone, on your iPad. And we've tested with people using a number of different platforms. So whatever you are the most comfortable regularly using to access the internet, you can use that device to do this. If you don't have a scanner and you want to take a picture of a document with your phone, you can do that. If you do that, you just want to make sure that it's a big enough size so that when they blow it up on the computer, they can actually read what the document says. But anybody who needs any help in this application process, or you don't have a computer, or you don't have a smartphone, if you reach out to us, we will get you help at the bank or at the resiliency center to get you the help you need to do this.
Is there any way that the 10 families can be exempt from this? Because what are we going to send you, a death certificate?
Yeah, that's actually what you need to do.
That's terrible. I just want to let you know that. That's terrible that we are being asked to do that. I'm just letting you know that.
Well, I'm sorry, but we get audited and we have to, someone should be able to look at the file and see all of the documentation and prove, so we can prove that we did what we were supposed to do. And that's just to cover us. So.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, my name is Dawn, my son was Colby Rosenman, and I just wanted to ask, how are these people being contacted? Because if I didn't have a friend on Facebook, I wouldn't have known anything about this meeting today. I know some people got called by the school. I haven't heard from the school since 2 weeks after the shooting when they called to ask how Colby was. So I'm just concerned about how and if these people, if everybody is being contacted.
So we're asking, if you didn't get contacted by us, we're asking please go to nationalcompassionfund.org and fill out the contact form so that we can make sure we get you information. We did send it to the school, and we had lots of people say the school sent it out to all the parents in the school. And so we've had a lot of people who sent us that email. So that's the work that we're doing. We've made with any information that we had on the families of those who were killed and the people who were injured. Elena Roberts, who's an attorney with our office, has made individual phone calls to reach out to people, to answer questions, to let them know about this. We've also offered all of the families of the deceased and the injured the opportunity to sit down with us individually, privately, so we can address their particular concerns. We met with a number of folks yesterday and today, and so that offer stands for everybody, so that we want to make sure that the things that we're doing are working to address your concerns in your particular situation.
I was just wondering if there was an entity that had everybody.
Well, here's the.
They would all contact all of these people to make sure that they would be aware of what's going on. I'm just afraid that people will miss good information.
Right, and the school district cannot legally give us everybody's contact information. The law enforcement cannot legally release information to us. The FBI can't do it. And so that's why we need everybody's help. And so that's why we've got the folks from the media here, and why we're trying to tell everybody, if you want information on this or anybody wants information, please fill out this contact form, and that will guarantee that we'll keep you informed every step of the way. And we'll let you know final protocols have been issued. Here it is. Application process is opening. Here's the link. Application process closes in 2 weeks. Have you done that? Application process closes in 2 days. And through our system, we can actually see if someone, it's also set up, you set up a username and password. So let's say you start your application and you don't have all the information. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can save it and come back and finish it later. So we can also see who has a partial application. And anybody who's got a partial application, as we get closer to the deadline, we reach out and we say, hey, did you have a question? Did you need some help? We saw you started an application. So we work really hard to make sure that, that people know about it and they have this. Now, because the way this is set up, this fund is not going on forever, all right? The money's going to come in and it's going to go out. And we're going to give out 100% of that money. But when we give out 100% of that money, there's not going to be any money left. And so if someone says, and it always happens, someone says after we announce we're giving out this money and this is how much each person's getting, then someone says, oh, what about me? I didn't know about this. All right? And so that's why check your spam. If you didn't get an email from the school, check your spam filter. If you didn't get an email from us and you signed up for this, make sure that we're on your safe contacts list so that these notifications go into your inbox. And so we're going to do everything we can to get that out to folks. But the deadline's going to be the deadline so that this committee has the information that they need to make a decision as quickly as possible about where everybody is in the categories and be able to set that distribution plan.
Yeah. Can you touch a little bit about one of the challenges that we're having as a committee as well is that we know that we have limited funds. So we know right now we're at that $800,000 mark. For someone that's lost their brother in a fatal car accident, I know that no money's going to bring back my brother and everything that my brother went through. And I just, my heart goes out to y'all, but my parents, when they went through that, they had to send that death certificate to so many agencies. He was actually at the university at the time at Texas State, so we had to send it there to all of the bills, to the apartment complex, just to everything. So my parents had to go through that, and I was there. And it was just a terrible situation. So my heart goes out to those who lost their family. But the piece that we're battling with is we know because it's a limited amount of money, if we open it up too broad, then we're going to end up cutting a check to a family member or to parents for $25 or $50 if we open it up too broad. So us up here are really battling each other, and some of us have great relationships with some of the families in our community, and we're saying, wow, if we open it up too broad, then we end up giving a family $100 or $200, whatever it is. How do we narrow it but still be fair to each individual family? So today we really want to hear from you and say, hey, I think we need to actually really invest in those that were injured or those that went to the hospital or those that really lost their child. And that's where we want to hear from y'all, because as committee members, when we sit there, we really need to fight through it and weed through that process. Do we narrow it down? Do we open it up? So those are the questions we have, and we really want to hear from y'all today, so we can try to help out the process and make it as smooth as possible.
Great, thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Chris Stone. I trust every one of you guys. I believe that y'all are going to do the right thing for everybody, but what goes through my mind is I always ask myself, who was in the room with my kid whenever it started? And then I ask myself, who got trapped at the door with my son trying to get out of the door? And then I ask who was who was all in the closet with my son? That's what I ask. I hope I get to meet all these kids that were in there, But other than the money, I trust all you guys with it. But that's the questions I ask, and I hope y'all ask the same thing to yourself. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I say something? Chris, that's something that we talked about, that there's so many different levels within each subcategory that you could go on and on, but the kiddos that, like within this present, this is what we're envisioning, that there were kids that were present, that were not injured and not deceased. Okay, so that leaves the rest of the class. What happened? Some of those got out right away. Some of them didn't, and they were in there for 30 to 40 minutes with your son in the closet, hiding or whatever. Is it fair to say that those that escaped or received the same gift as those that stayed in the closet for the 30 or 40 minutes? That's the kind of things that I feel like as a committee, we're not talking percentages, but weights and the emotional status. And if you were, had a minor injury, is that the same as what someone like Flo went through? So we need your feedback so we can kind of get an idea if y'all agree with the concept of leveling the injured, leveling those that were present, and let us know what you think. Because I took from you that those that were with Chris, that's something special. So not to belittle anything else, but that's what we need to hear from y'all. Otherwise, we're going to do what we think is right, but we don't want y'all to come back later and be upset because we missed something. So please, don't be afraid to tell us. And we're writing the notes, so that when we meet again, we have a record of what y'all thought was most important. And you might be different than this one and that one. We'll put it all on there and make the best of it.
I don't think you thought anybody in that room was special. I'm just saying.
No.
I didn't think
I'm the
so.
grandmother
Just
of
thought
her.
I'd clarify that.
My grandson was in the first part class.
Can't hear you.
That's
My
better.
grandma, my grandson was in the first part class when the shooter came in. We're not wanting anything. He had a bomb land in front of him. He has gone through a lot of psychological trauma. But we have help, we have insurance, he's fine, he's taken care of. There may be some that don't have insurance and they may need help. And if that can be done, that would be awesome. My personal opinion is the ones that died and that were injured and in the hospital are the ones that need this money the most. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
Can we keep it?
Yeah, let's have them come up so then we know who's next. Anybody who wants to say, come on right up here.
My name is Shirley Beasley, and my son was in one of the art classrooms, and he was one of the ones that was injured. He was hit by a bullet. Injury is fine, but he was in the closet the whole time, seeing everything, heard everything, and emotionally, he's not okay. So, just, the ones that were in the closet and could not get out, they're not okay. They're not okay. And my son has went from a counselor to a psychiatrist to get help for him right away. So these kids that were in that closet, they're not okay. I just want everyone to think about that. They're not okay. Because my son's not. My son is a different kid. He's a different kid than the kid that I dropped off at school at 7 o'clock that morning.
I hope you're not directing this.
No, sir. No.
I don't think that anybody,
He's
everybody went through trauma that day.
he's a different kid now. He's gone through a lot emotionally, and just know that these kids that were in that closet, they're not okay. They're not. So everyone, please pray for them, because my son's having a very, very rough time with this right now, many, many different ways. Sound, movement, many, many different things. 4th of July was a disaster for my family. We had to keep him at home with his earphones on. So just remember that those kids that were in that closet, they're not okay.
Thank you, Shirley.
My daughter is Isabella Mance. She also is with the children.
She's a different child. She's working really hard with her counselors. She's really
Ma'am,
proud
we
of
really
her.
can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I said we're really proud of her. She's working really hard with her counselors. What she told her counselors this week. She feels dead inside. And so, she's trying to make it through, and we're trying to make it through, but as the grandma had said, she has insurance, and we do too. The one thing that I think all parents should consider, though, is insurance benefits run out. They're not unlimited. They usually have limited numbers of visits that you can have. So it's a consideration. We thought really hard about whether we would attend this meeting or if we would apply. And I just hope that all parents consider all aspects of it, because from a monetary side, initially we're just not interested. And just because of the trauma that she's been dealt, and the weekly counseling sessions, not just for her, but for our whole family, because we weren't in that room with her, but she's brought us into it. And so I just want to make sure that all the families are actually thinking about, everything.
That's a great point. Thank you so much.
where her insurance will not cover plastic surgery. That's something that I'm thinking about for teenagers, you know, are very sensitive when it comes to the way they look. And I'm just thankful that she's here.
All right, thank you.
Just what y'all have so far, as far as the deceit, I like how y'all have it set up so far, with the kids in the art room, the injured, the ones that stayed overnight, and then the deceased. I like that. Also, again, I guess the kids that were in the closet, I feel like they should have some kind of category on their own, because they did stay there for the whole amount of time, and I know they have to be suffering some kind of trauma as well.
Can I ask a question, just because I want to make sure I understand? When you talk about the kids in the closet, was that in the closet in the art room or in the closet someplace else?
In the art room, the ones that were in the art room heard everything.
Okay.
Saw kids, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's helpful. I just want to make sure we understood.
I know y'all don't know me. In my day job, I'm a lawyer. So, free legal advice, if you were my clients in my practice, if you're eligible for the rules you guys set, please apply to your kids. Please. It's the kind of thing I would beg a parent to do. I know it's a grand magnanimous thing to do along the way, even if the kids don't do so. Please, if I were your lawyer, I'd be begging you. Everybody who fits the rules, apply to your kids.
My name is Lori Williams.
Okay.
My son Trey Greenwood, he's in the second art class. This is the first meeting I've been to with this, other than some of the funerals and visitations. Trey sat right next to Chris and speaks very highly of him. He did run to the closet. He was in the closet with Chris. Christian, when it was all going on, and they got me to come to the second classroom, according to my son. Christian told Trey to run to the door, that he had it. Though my son was not physically injured, to speak into him today, you would think that he's okay, and he appears to be okay. The biggest thing that he's taking on is that he left and he didn't stay to help the other kids out. And as a Christian, and him being raised as a Christian, I told him that God knew the plan, and hopefully he would use Trey to minister to some of these children. I did give them a hope in the future. I'm not interested in any money. At this point right now, he doesn't want any counseling. He said he's dealing with it. I don't know what the future's going to hold for him. I know, I say this from my heart, and I hope I don't offend anyone. People have given money, and this money can be put to good use, and there's families that need it. But the bottom line is, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the money's going to be gone. The kids are still going to have this on their mind and live through it. So, like we did the first night that it happened when we all joined at the bank, let's remember to love on each other, to pray on each other, to be understanding of people's emotions, the angers, the different emotions that go through it. And I just pray peace for this community, for the families whose children aren't coming home. I'm very thankful that mine is. I would also like to say that Trey's older brother, Brandon Noto, has joined the high school this year as a teacher. He's a Santa Fe graduate. And one of the reasons that he wanted to come is because he wanted to be there to protect his children, because it is his home. He graduated from Santa Fe. So I ask for y'all's prayer for him, for the coming years that are coming up on our school. And just remember these families daily. And thank y'all for letting me share.
Thank you so much. A comment or question that they want to share that they didn't want to share in front of the group, then again, please go ahead and send an email to santafestrong@victimsofcrime.org. The things that you have shared have been very helpful to help this committee understand what everybody's going through so they can make a decision that's going to be appropriate. And what everybody wants to do is help as many people as you can, as much as you can. So thank you all. And please, if you want more information and want to stay updated, please make sure you sign up for that contact form. So you'll be hearing from us soon. Thank you all very much for coming. Okay?
And also, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, as you had brought up, some people may not have heard about this. If you know someone their child was at the school in this area that they should know about this, certainly tell them. Some people don't have social media, they don't get on it, but if you know someone, you reach out to them and put them in contact with the information. Pick up some of the brochures that are here. We are supposed to help each other, and this certainly is a time when we need to reach out to those that may have fallen through the cracks. So take it upon yourself to make sure that these people that you know their children were affected or were in that area, adults that were in that area, that you reach out to them and say, have you heard about this? Hey, take this information, sign up on this, okay?
Great.
The Resiliency Center, Carol Gaylord's here.
Oh, Carol from the Resiliency Center, while you're here, did you want to share anything about, any information about that for these folks to help spread the word on that?
Want everybody to know that we are here for you. We are open 7 days a week until 7 p.m. for free counseling. We do have grief and trauma specialists there on Wednesday that are from Texas Children's Hospital. So they are the only ones in the nation that provide that service. So we're here whenever y'all need us.
I have a question about it. Is everything
Currently, the counseling is one-on-one, but we are looking at doing several different peer groups as well for adults and children. So we want to start with the highest impact first. So next Wednesday, we'll be starting our first group session.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing in providing that tremendous resource to this community. That's incredibly important. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, thank you all for coming. We greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing with us.
I think tonight went really well. We did get some helpful information. We got some good feedback. It's a tough situation, and we were grateful that the people took time to come and share with us and ask their questions. So I felt it was a pretty good meeting tonight.
The give and take between the audience and the panel, I think was really good.
I do. I think it went really well. We realized too there's a lot of emotions involved, and so it's a tragedy, and we're glad that they were able to come out and give us some insight on what they're dealing with and how they're coping with this.
Where do we go from here?
From here, we will take all these into consideration. We'll review all the feedback that we did receive. Next week, the committee will be meeting and doing a final protocol. So once that final protocol is in place, we will get the application process open so that they can submit the information that we need to categorize them and get the funds out to them.
Anything you'd like to add, you'd like the people to know?
I just like the people to know this committee is working really hard. We realize that we're not going to make everybody happy, but we hope through this process we're able to make the majority happy and come up with an agreement that everybody feels is fair. And that's our goal, is we want it to be fair. We want to help these families. We would love to help everybody. We realize that that's not an option, but we're here to do whatever we can. And everything that was said tonight and brought up tonight is going to be carefully considered and reviewed for us to make our final decision.
this can't help but be emotionally taxing for the people on the panel, on the board. How would you address that?
It is, and tonight I got choked up in the meeting, and it's hard because you don't want people to think you're doing wrong, and we're trying to do what we feel is best, and we don't have all the information, and that's what tonight was, to get the information that we need to come up with the best final protocol to get these funds out to the victims of this tragedy. So it is very emotional, and I want everybody to know this committee is working very hard to do what they feel is best for our community.